Hello, everybody. Richard Collins again from Physique Co podcast. Today, we are extremely lucky to have all the way from London, Phil Learney. Now, for those of you that don't know Phil Learney is the creator of the Advanced Coaching Academy, an absolute phenomenal online course for trainers to fix up business, to get better with training, to get better with nutrition. I'm going to let Phil just give a quick rundown of that so you guys can get a brief history of what he actually does, and then we're going to get into some Q&A. So questions that we've had from trainers, from people within Perth that want to know a few answers to different situations. So this is going to be really fun today for all trainers to listen to. So first off, welcome, Phil. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Richard. Thanks for having me.
So can you want to explain a little bit about what the Advanced Coaching Academy is and what you do and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. The Advanced Coaching Academy is kind of a culmination of 20 years as a personal trainer, through the rough, the smooth, everything that kind of I learned along the way, the business side of things and nutritional side of things, the actual coaching side of things. And over the years, I kind of came to the reality that I was very limited with respect to the amount of people that I could help. Being a one-on-one coach, I ended up towards the latter end of my career. I had a lot of clients that I maintained and looked after for a long time. So what was happening is slowly over time, it was diminishing the amount of people that I was actually reaching. And outside of social media channels, really, I didn't have an avenue to be able to educate people, to help more people than were in that kind of closed geographical circle of personal training. So throughout that sort of process, I was doing a lot online. I was educating, putting out articles, things like this, and enjoyed doing so. So off the back of it, slowly started to develop a network of seminars that I started presenting. I think it's nearly 10 years now since I did my first seminar, which was, again, just about coaching. I think the first one was something like a hypertrophy or a fat loss seminar, it would have been. And then over the years, I've kind of cultivated that and developed that into a speaking network as such, and along the way developed the academy. So we're now coming into our fourth year, and we have in excess of about 3,500 coaches have been through the academy. We have people in 40 plus countries now, and yeah, it's incredible, because obviously the knock-on effect to that, much like my seminars, is that the coaches go away and they go out, they deliver better services than they did before. They improve the quality of other people's lives, but at the same time, hopefully improve their own by developing their businesses, developing their coaching skills, et cetera, et cetera. So it starts with the trainer and ends with the client for us and for me. And that's really why I started in the industry. And that's just given me a platform to be able to continue to do what I do without that direct one-on-one coaching like I used to do.
Okay. So within the Advanced Coaching Academy, as you said, you focus not just on nutrition and training and things like that, but you also focus on helping the trainers build their business from wherever they're at to how to scale it up to a much larger size business to be able to help more people.
Correct. And also to keep trainers in the industry. I mean, along the years that I've been sort of coaching, I've seen a lot of very good coaches come and go simply because they couldn't afford to really stay in the industry. You know, a lot of people start in it very young. And when you're young, you don't have a lot of commitments. You don't have mortgages. You don't have bills to pay. You don't have the same kind of overheads that you have when people get a bit older and they've got families and blah, blah, blah. And, they're looking at improving the quality of life. And what happens gradually over time is typically trainers get paid theoretically less and less for doing a job that's getting better and better. So we work on trainers' businesses, and we try and help them develop their service models, and how to manage their businesses better, and also how to scale them, how to reach more people, and how to help more people.
Okay. So if anybody, just a quick plug off of that, if anybody is interested in looking at what it's all about, where would be the best place to have a look?
Just jump over to our website, advancedcoachingacademy.com. I'm on, obviously, my social platforms, so it's just Phil Learney. I'm sure there'll be links to that off the back of this.
Yep.
And you'll find me on Instagram as the PT Coach. And, there's a lot of information on there on both of those, not necessarily always about the academy, as, that's something that organically we kind of, we don't push down people's throats, but, hopefully off the back of the education that I deliver, through social channels and through, processes like this, is that people are interested in what we've got to deliver, and hopefully word of mouth is the rest of it.
Yeah, I know there's quite a big following. I know of 15 to 20 trainers just in Perth that are currently doing your course, and all have absolutely nothing but good things to say about it. Um, so it's doing what it's meant to.
Splendid.
All right. Why don't we just not get into these questions that we've got? So I put up a Instagram post a few days ago, just basically saying anybody has any questions in regards to business training and nutrition for Phil Learney. Funnily enough, a lot of them came from the business side of things. So I guess that's the direction we're going to take it today. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw at you a few questions, and we'll get you to send back your thoughts, and hopefully we can help out a few people. So the first question that we have is, how do you know if you have what it takes to be a trainer? So this is coming from somebody who's looking at changing careers and going into personal training, and I think was more curious on, what attributes should they look at themselves if they want to enter the fitness industry as a full-time career. What would be the things that they need to basically have to or know?
It's a funny question. Attributes. What attributes does somebody need to be a successful or to be a good coach? And there's so many there that would be kind of I guess stereotypical of the fitness industry, where you talk about people who were motivated, who give a very good pep talk or whatever it might be, and they're the sort of ones that people would always assume. But it's a funny industry in that we deal with people, and one of the things that the people distinctly lack are people skills. They find it very hard to communicate with other people. The whole walking and trudging the gym floor, just kind of looking in shape and expecting people to come over to you and to pick up clients. Because remember, as a business, if you're looking at changing career, you've got to get busy. If you don't get busy, you don't learn your craft, you don't learn your trade, and ultimately you don't get paid. Which any of those reasons would be a reason for someone to leave the industry or not enjoy it. At the end of the day, nobody enjoys working for free, but also nobody enjoys working when there's nobody there to service or to do anything with. Remember, we work in a service-based industry, and it involves people. So, one of the major criteria, the major business skills that you should be able to pull together really are people skills, communication skills, being able to say hello to people, being able to introduce yourself to people. The sort of skills that on an evening out will help you introduce yourself to absolute strangers, because a lot of PT and a lot of coaching is about that in the onset. Not so much when we're dealing with professional athletes. If you're dealing with professional athletes, you're probably going to be put into a facility where people have no choice. They've got to get to know you. And remember, coaching, the roots of coaching and the background of coaching came from these kind of areas where, a PE teacher doesn't need to have necessarily people skills, because by default, every single student that's in front of them has got to listen to them. Whereas the industry that we're in, people don't have to listen to you. People don't have to pay attention to you. And so many times we see coaches and they think that their physique will define them as a coach, and define whether they get busy or define whether they're able to do what they do. And more often than not, the thing that is lacking is the ability to talk to people, is the ability to communicate, be able to take complex information and not necessarily dumb it down, but put it into a deliverable level.
Yeah.
So things like nutrition, it's all well and good talking about the complexities of nutrition to somebody, but can you facilitate somebody to go away and improve their diet? And that is more about having an ability to relate to the individual that you're dealing with. So a lot of it is relatability, communication skills, the sort of things where we've got to understand what these people are going through. So, you having your fixed kind of mindset where, because you started training when you were 18 and you committed yourself to it, and, your diet's on point and your training's on point, and you don't have these commitments that we talked about briefly before, it's very easy to cast aspersions on somebody that the reason they're not progressing is because they're not committed enough. And often that is understanding people and the hierarchy of needs different people have. Most of the people that we'll deal with will far outweigh the gym, nutrition as a priority with their family, with their social life, with their friends, they will always sit superior to going to the gym and preparing your diet. And as an industry, we find it very hard to accept that. So a lot of what we do with the skills that are required are being able to deliver things that people enjoy, people can do, and people adhere to.
Okay.
So with respect to, do you have the skills or the ability? How was the question phrased again? Remind me.
What attributes would
Attributes, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so having that ability to communicate with people and listen.
It's interesting that you say that because I've been training clients now for better part of 11 or 12 years. One of the best courses that I ever did was sports psychology.
Yeah.
And I find that I use that more than I realized, more than I thought I would at the time. I had originally done it just because someone had recommended it to me. Um, and I actually have ended up using that more now than potentially the majority of the training or nutrition courses that I've gone through or
Yeah,
education that I've gone through.
And Richard, that's coaching skills. Coaching skills is understanding people, understanding the actions and the reactions and the habits and the behaviors. And there's more to coaching as a personal trainer than knowing what exercise does what, and knowing what nutrient does what.
Nobody's
Because
robotic.
ultimately it comes down to people adhering and actually doing these things. And the vast majority of clients that anybody deals with at any one stage, their biggest challenge and their biggest issue will be adherence.
Yeah.
It will not be they're doing the wrong type of squat. It won't be their macros are out slightly. It will be adherence to their plan. Most people can't hit the calories, never mind the protein, the carbs, and the fats. Most people just need to move. They don't need a specific type of squat to elicit a specific response. They need to move their legs through flexion and extension. That's fundamentally it. And we're sods for massively overcomplicating things and making things unnecessarily difficult for a very, very basic need of a very or basic requirement of the population that we largely deal with.
Okay. So our next question actually sort of leads into this a little bit. So someone has written in and said the best way, they have a few clients that are constantly having drama within their personal life, and it's making them extremely hard to stay adherent to training programs and diets, with as much, trying to put in as much flexibility as they possibly can, but outside factors are making it quite hard for them to do their job. So in that situation, what advice would you have?
It's a tricky one without knowing specifics. Did they tell you what kind of specific problems they were having?
No, I don't have that. But
no, they didn't.
We can use one that you'd commonly see. We could use family or relationship.
Again,
which I think is quite a common one.
Yeah, support structures are a tricky one. Because obviously, as we get older, we develop into social success. I mean, if I use an example of somebody who's overweight, somebody who's massively overweight will have carved out their entire life around probably the way that the habits, behaviors, and the people that they hang around. And this is true of any human being, is that we hang around people who have similar interests. We hang around people who have similar desires in life. So, back in the day where, I used to like to party a bit. And I would therefore hang around with people who also wanted to party. Otherwise, on a Friday night, you're stuck and you've got no one to go out with. It makes logical sense that we do this. Then, as I got into the gym more and more, I would hang around more people who went to the gym. And this is the problem with kind of family, in that we don't pick and choose them. We can't select these people who are going to inadvertently support us. So a lot of it is transparency and probably informing the people around us what we're doing and why we're doing it more so. Because a lot of people don't understand it. I always remember the quote from Arnold where he talked about, racing drivers driving round and round and round and round and round the track. To the layperson, that might make no sense whatsoever. Why would somebody do that? Why would you get in a car and drive around in circles as fast as you possibly can repeatedly? And this is how training and exercise will probably appear to the people around you, your family, your close friends, and things like this. And what happens as people lose weight or they transform their physiques or whatever it might be is by default, a lot of their social circles actually change. You'll have probably seen this with your clients. You might have seen it even with yourself, is that you soon almost find out who your friends are or your support mechanisms. I have a lot of friends that I have very little in common with, but they support me. So therefore, they will remain my friends, and they will be people who will be there when the chips are down and when life gets tough and blah blah blah. And it sounds really harsh, but I think this is just a part of life. Is that you will migrate through these different social circles and things like this. So when you're getting problems from your family, it's very important that you tell them what you're doing and why you're doing it, not just what you're doing, because what you're doing is like going around that track in a circle. They don't understand it. Why they're doing it, they will probably understand. So, if you had a relation who just had a heart attack or some kind of, cardiovascular, problem, nobody's going to bat an eyelid when he turns around and says, well, I'm going to start going to the gym every day. Why? Because they know the why. They don't know that they don't get the going to the gym every day, but now they understand why he is. So a lot of it is getting across that why. Why are you doing this? And also, as a coach, it's very important that we consider other people. Is that it's all well and good going, you get your CEO of your company comes in and says, look, blah, blah, blah. And you give them a nutritional plan that they have to go home every single night and spend 2 hours preparing their food for the next day. Logistically, that just doesn't make any sense. Firstly, they're a CEO of a company, which means they've probably got the financial resources to get someone to actually make that food for them. And we're not thinking outside of the box that we kind of reside in. Then we've got, the 40-year-old mum with 3 kids and has to go home and prepare food for the kids every night. And again, we're expecting the same thing, that they'll go away, they'll put some food in some Tupperware, they'll slave over the stove until 10 o'clock at night whilst trying to put a baby to bed and blah, blah, blah. And we don't consider other people. So, when, as a coach, what you're trying to do is you're trying to curate all of the things that this person would require for them to stay active, to facilitate compromise almost. In that, how do you introduce exercise or activity that incorporates other people? And how do you facilitate a nutritional strategy that again considers other people? And also makes it far simpler for somebody to shop even. One of the things I talk a lot about caloric curation. And this is remember, human beings have to acquire, they have to create, and they have to consume food. So we need to help them with the acquisition. Is how do I help people acquire the food that they require? Because it's all well and good writing a list of all these things that they've got to go away, put together in these fancy combinations and then package up and take to work and all these different things. But in actuality, that's not really something somebody's going to adhere to long term. And for a lot of people, it's something they can't do. Most people who were born post 1986, the statistics tell us this, that post 1986, most people can't cook. They'll be able to cook 2 to 3 dishes. That is it. So we know that the generations that we're largely dealing with now don't cook. They don't prepare food. So writing them a list of foods to go away and prepare, again, doesn't logically make sense. So it's facilitating. And again, we kind of gone a little bit off on a tangent there, but a lot of it is
it's the best way to go.
Explaining the why and making sure that your support mechanisms know why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And try not to compromise their life, because, if you're in a relationship with somebody and they want to go out drinking on a Friday night and all of a sudden you decide that I'm not going to do that for the next 12 weeks, you got to remember that impacts their life as well.
Yeah.
So we've got to consider others. And ultimately, we go back on, the vast majority of physique transformations or, goals that people have involve reducing the calories and increasing their output. And you can do that whilst keeping somebody's life pretty much the same as it is now. It's not difficult to look at I could take anybody's diet now. If they wrote their diet down, I could probably keep the diet 95% exactly the same as it was. Same food, same taste, same textures, and probably save them 1,000 calories. They wouldn't even notice.
Okay.
But this is this whole obsession with having to change the way people eat. when many times we don't have to change the way people eat, we need to change what they eat. You know, somebody comes to me with a, you know, they like to eat a pizza on a Friday night. I'm sure I can find a pizza that's got 100 calories less. It's not rocket science. And now if I apply that same principle to every single meal that they have within their week, the average person is going to save 4,000 calories in a week by saving 100 calories per meal. It's not rocket science.
It's just micro differences.
Absolutely. But we have this obsession that you can't eat that on a diet. Well, you can. You've just got to find a way. You know, I save 100 calories. You know, average person eats about 4 times a day. If I can save 100 calories per sitting, I've saved them 4,000 calories for the most part.
It's just interesting as well, like just going through and talking about it with like the relationship. And I think I can count on more than one hand the amount of times over, you know, the last 10 years where I've seen the case of a relationship, you know, their relationship ends up built on, you know, going out and eating and going out and socializing and drinking a lot and things like that. And then somebody ends up doing a, you know, some sort of drastic lifestyle change, which they enjoy, which they feel better about. And then the partner, it ends up sort of a little bit messy between the two partners, because I think obviously the values are changing between the two people, and what brought them together is sort of disappearing. So that's an interesting point that you bring up about finding, not just affecting the client, but you have to look at the people around the client as well, that you can compromise.
And that comes down to, you know, if you look at the average personal trainer and the average coach's age and their hierarchy of what's in their life at the time that they start as a coach, the easiest way to diet and get in ridiculous shape in the world is ignore people. Is be entirely selfish about what you do. I.e., you train when you need to train, you eat when you need to eat, and you prepare the food that you and only you are going to consume. It's the easiest way.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that isn't compliant with the vast majority of people that we deal with. You know, and it's this nth degree of expectancy, is that people want to get in this ridiculous shape, but they also don't want to compromise anything about their life. So part of our goal and part of our task is to allow them to compromise things they probably won't even notice. Okay. You know, the subtle little things that we can get them to do on a day-to-day basis that become habitual, but actually make a massive impact on their life.
And just a quick, this is just another part of this question for my sake that I'm a little bit curious on your thoughts on, is when you're creating a training program for them, would you create the adherence? So you'd say how many times a week are you able to get to the gym, and then create the program around that? Or would you would you create the program according to their adherence, or would you look around at it and say, I need you to have a set minimum time I want you to get in the gym for?
Again, to start with, I'd ask what the commitment is.
Yeah.
You know, the problem is that the vast majority of people when we get to them and when they get to us, their idea of commitment is a 10, and in reality, it's a 5. Yeah. You know, remember, people are coming to us with the mentality that they're ready for change. They're ready to change anything. You know, I'll do anything and everything it takes, and the vast majority of the time, that means very little. You know, so when somebody comes to you and they define what they can do, I will often draw it back as a coach. And this is just based off my own experience, is that I will often draw it back as a coach and actually get them to do less. So if they say to me, look, I can come in every day, I'm like, right, tell you what, let's start with what were you doing before? I used to go to the gym once a week. Let's start going twice. Because I know that when they start to see results and they start to move, they're going to ask me to come a third time. You will know from the clients that you've dealt with for, you know, fairly decent stints of time, the biggest challenge you've got is actually stopping them going to the gym.
Very true.
Because they get to that point where they're like, the more I do, the better.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to curb that mentality to some degree, because then what we do is we then start countering diet with training, and all of a sudden now these people are consuming, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, but exercising for 2 hours a day. Now we know that logistically they're not going to be able to keep that up. So what happens is they stop doing the exercise, but the food stays the same. And by this point, they've turned it into a habitual behavior.
So
It's like professional athletes. I was watching a show last night, and there was a guy that I used to, when I was a kid, literally a kid. It was, I was kind of into football. I wasn't really into it, but and it was
which is soccer in Australia.
soccer. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
and
Just
not to
clearing that
confuse
up.
people. But I remember I used to play in goals, and I was a goalkeeper, and there was a goalkeeper of a particular club that I kind of aspired to and looked up to, and and I was a big fan of. And there was a show on television last night with him on it, and you would not recognize the guy. This guy was morbidly obese, looked nothing like he did. And this is that thing where professional sports people get used to a certain volume of food based off what they do, then all of a sudden they're not doing it anymore. And there was a show just recently on in the UK, which was the Old England team. A good friend of mine, Luke, actually he trained them, and the vast majority of these ex-professional footballers were overweight. And this was kind of the kind of basis of the show, was that all these people had gone away, started to carried on eating loads and loads of calories, but weren't having the same kind of output. So hence the vast majority of them ended up overweight and unfit. So they took them back to their roots and sort of said, right, we're going to get you fit again. And it was, it was interesting. But again, this is the habits and behaviors. It's the people that they hang around. It's the people they socialize with, their family, their friends. And remember, it's very easy as a professional athlete to turn around to your spouse and your family and this, that, the other, and say, look, I can't drink, I can't eat because this is my profession. Because it's the why, right? As long as your why is solid, people won't bug you. They won't bother you. It's when your why is a little bit kind of, and that's tricky for people who try to lose weight multiples of times, because, the last thing somebody who's been on every single diet under the sun wants to do is go and announce to everybody else that they're going to do something that inevitably they are probably going to fail at. Nobody wants to draw attention to that. You're not going to go up to your spouse, your friends, your family, and go, yeah, so I'm starting this diet. I want you all to support me again, when you're on your 10th or 12th diet attempt. Because most of the time they're going to laugh at you. They're going to go, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah. And this is something we also need to consider as coaches, is that we need to have a level of empathy. We need to understand that a lot of people don't want to draw attention to their weight loss or their physical goals. They don't want to do that because they're terrified of failing. You don't want to draw attention to something you're inevitably going to fail at, right?
Yeah.
If there'll be things in your life, Richard, that you've done that every time you've tried to do it, you haven't quite succeeded and done it. You might have said, something in business that, yeah, I'm gonna put together a social media schedule and I'm gonna do it every single day. And you don't want to draw attention to something that you haven't quite mastered or completed or followed through with, right? And this is the same with the people we deal with. Is that they need to do things that they're successful at, because we also deal with a lot of people who are compounded by failure. They're used to failing at things. So, it's that pat on the back every time they've succeeded and done something. And the more we focus on adherence and habits and behaviors, the more we're going to get people to succeed.
Okay. That is a very, very thorough and awesome answer for that. So I think we'll move on to question 3. So what separates a typical trainer from a great trainer in your eyes?
It certainly isn't qualifications. Let me preface that with it's not qualifications. It's not how qualified somebody is. Now that is a huge part of being a professional, is being qualified and staying within your remit. And that's something I don't want to ever overshadow. That is critically important, but a number of qualifications doesn't necessarily mean someone's a good coach. Doesn't mean they're a good trainer. So can you repeat the question again, just so I keep on track with this?
No. What separates a typical trainer from a great trainer in your eyes?
Right. So the separation will probably occur at the point where they communicate better. A good coach can communicate very effectively and can get across things that the average coach might not be able to. So if we take a beginner and a more advanced coach, the thing that they should have learned over the years is that, and again, the only way they learn this is to get busy, and to listen and learn from clients that they deal with. is that they're going to find better ways of communicating the same thing, where they might not be able to coach something terribly well because their communication skills are poor. I remember doing an exercise where what we had to do was we had to coach somebody without speaking. So what they did is they took us to one side and they made us coach people without speaking. And I think if I recall, this was a lot of years ago, I think if I recall, it was a back squat. And you had to go and coach somebody without speaking. So you had to show them it. So visual, right? Then what they had to do is you had to do it without moving a limb. You could only talk to them. So you had to vocalize it. You had to get it across and teach somebody how to squat by vocalizing it. This was a superb exercise because what it did, it taught us to use the physical side of what we've got, is that the tactile side of things, the demos, the things like this, and use them more effectively. But see how powerful they were when you independently pulled them across from each other. So a mantle of a great coach is somebody who can coach somebody, who can take somebody through a basic movement, but be able to move them into the right positions and get them into the right positions and get them feeling the movement the way they should in a very kind of short period of time in many respects. But then be able to repeat that and repeat it again and repeat it again and getting those things to stick. But there are other aspects of what makes a great coach in that we could look at the nutritional side of things, we could look at the business side of things. And part of that is the compliance, is that the being honest with clients a lot of the time, is not leading them up the garden path. I always talk a lot about frequency of sessions. And again, this is this communication aspect where sometimes it comes across like I'm trying to make a sale for a personal trainer in some respects. But I always use the guitar analogy, which you may have heard me, may not have heard me talk about before. But I'll use an example of me and you, Richard. If me and you wanted to learn the guitar, right? The guitar is a skill, much like training is a skill, okay? And we're both going to go and we're both going to have 10 lessons. Now, who learns the guitar quicker is based on the frequency of sessions. So I'm going to do 3 guitar lessons a week for 3 and a bit weeks. You're going to do 1 a week for the next 10 weeks, right? And this is the mentality of the coaches and clientele. And they seem to think this is okay. Now, I would never, ever do 1 session a week with a client because I'm misleading them and I'm lying to them because they want results. They come to me for results. Don't get me wrong. There were certain people I did coach once a week, but that was a skill acquisition thing a lot of the time. And it was something where they just needed a nudge or they just wanted a bit of a push. But if it was critical to their goals that they needed to learn a skill and they needed to get better at it, I would not train them if they would only do 1 session a week in the onset. Not because of the financial side of things or whatever it might be. If somebody said to me they couldn't afford it, I'd say, right, we'll book you in for 5 weeks and save up the sessions that you would pay for over those 5 weeks, and then we'll do them in blocks. Because it's going to benefit you even more. So me and you are going to do these guitar lessons. Now, who learns the guitar quicker, me or you, Richard?
I would say you.
Yeah, because I'm doing 3 a week.
Yeah.
Who learns every single week? Who learns something that then by the next week they've forgotten it, or they've picked up bad habits that they then need to eradicate before picking up the good habits again?
That would be me.
Now, I'm not going to pick up any bad habits because my coach is going to stay on top of those. So I'm going to learn something and I'm going to repeat it, which is how we learn skills. We repeat them. Particularly as adults, we need to repeat things again and again and again in order to acquire a skill. Now, I'm learning how to become very self-sufficient, which means at the end of that process, who's going to be able to go away and continue to train on their own, probably without assistance?
You.
Who's probably going to need to buy another block of 10 sessions?
Myself.
You. So who spent more money? Long term, your goals, you're achieving your goals slower. You're not becoming self-sufficient. There is no level of autonomy with what you're doing. I become autonomous, which means that at the end of that, I can walk away from my coach. I probably won't, because my coach at that point is going to be getting some great results because he's seeing me 3 times a week. I'm picking up some great skills, some great habits. I'm getting some great results. Now I'm probably going to invest in another block of 10 sessions. And I'll probably keep doing that until I know I can look after and manage it myself. But the key thing here is I am getting results.
Yeah. Now,
by doing 1 session a week, you're not. So part of that thing that defines the difference between a good coach and a bad coach is the coach that's going to be honest with somebody. So when somebody comes to me and says, look, I want to achieve this in this amount of time, I'm going to be straight with them and I'm going to be honest with them. And this comes down to everything right down to pricing. And one of the big things that coaches struggle with is getting across pricing. I am worth what I'm worth per hour, and that is the be all and end all of it. That is what I charge for my services and the time that I have. And this was something early in my career I really struggled with, because it get to the point where, I had a massive conversion rate from consultations where I'd consult with somebody and a very, very high percentage of the time they wanted to then train with me. So they'd be like, can I sign up with you? And then it came to that horrible question where they say, how much? And I'd be like, so it would be, it's 300, and I kind of cringe, and you see my eyes all close up and blah, blah, blah. Like I was telling them something I know they're going to say no to. And then I'd be like, yeah, but we can do a discount on it or whatever it might be. And this is the bane of a lot of coaches' lives, is that they have this really low self-worth as to the skills and the service that they are actually offering. And a lot of the time, don't get me wrong, it's perfectly validated because the service they are offering is terrible. And this is just the standard in the industry. We have a very easy access point to the industry. We have a very low entry point, which means there are some terrible trainers out there and terrible coaches out there. But it comes down to that pricing thing where when I talk to coaches about how much they charge, they tell me, and then I say, what's that based on? They said, well, what everybody else charges. And when you hear that out loud, you're kind of like, that's a bit stupid, really. Because I offer a service that's infinitely better than everybody else, which therefore means that people will pay more for it and people will get better results for it. And people will, and when it comes to hotels or anything else in the service industry, people are willing to pay so much more money for it. You get 2 5-star hotels. And again, this is an analogy I use quite a lot, is that if you get 2 5-star hotels, which I'm sure I can find 2 5-star hotels in Perth, right? One of them will be £200 or £300 a night. The other one will be 100. So what's the difference? Because the criteria for what makes a 5-star hotel is largely based on amenities, which means they've both got pools. They've both probably got a golf course. They've both probably got a spa. They both have a certain, type of linen in their bedrooms, blah, blah, blah. And they're identical. But one charges £400 more. Why? Because the service in the place is infinitely better. Because it's the people. It's the people that define what these businesses can charge. And probably one of the best examples, back in the day was probably Four Seasons Hotel. Is the Four Seasons Hotel built their entire reputation off service. People didn't talk about necessarily the amenities that the Four Seasons Hotel had. They just said the service is impeccable. You walk in, people remember your name. You walk into a gym and again, I don't know what it's like in Perth. I've never been to Perth. But you walk into a commercial gym, trainers don't know your name. One of the things that I used to do when I started in the industry and when I moved to London, I was like, well, I'm in London, I don't know anybody. My first job as a personal trainer, I knew most of the people in that gym anyways. I was in a very small town. It was, most people knew everybody. So I knew people to talk to. So I picked up clients very quickly because people knew who I was. People knew my background. People knew everything about me. So it was much easier. But when I moved to city, it was nobody knows me. I've just started in this new gym and nobody has a clue who I am. So what I did, I made a point of making sure people knew who I am. And this wasn't put a big sign up on a notice board with my mugshot and with, all my skills and all my this, that, the other. Because people don't care about qualifications largely. People didn't come to me as a coach to ask me what my qualifications were. And I was far more qualified than most of the coaches in there. The fact is that I stood at the reception desk on a daily basis and I'd wait for people to bleep in. And when they bleeped in, their name would come up on the screen. So I'd then go onto the gym floor after seeing 4 or 5 people bleep in and I'd introduce myself. And I'd call them by their name. So now all of a sudden, I've just broken down a barrier, a massive, massive barrier that will be the difference between that person coming to me and asking me for coaching as opposed to going to some complete stranger on the gym floor who they've never spoken to and know nothing about and going and asking them. And that was the difference. People were like, well, we're the best coach. I don't know whether I was the best coach in that. I'd like to think I was up there. But what I was one of the most personable people in there. And I would talk to people and I would communicate with people and I'd get to know people. And I could probably, even to this day, nearly 10 years after I left that facility, I reckon I could still walk in and the members that were there when I was there will still talk to me. and I would still know their first names. And it'd be this thing. And that was difficult for me because I've never been very good at people's names and remembering people's names, but I'd make a point of, I would remember that person because I'd find some defining characteristic that would remind me of that person. They rode a motorbike, they had a dog, some defining characteristic. And that would be a topic of conversation a lot of the time. You know that if I don't know what it's like in Perth, but in London, if you want to talk to somebody on the street, the best bet is get a dog because people will stop and talk to the dog.
It's no different here.
Yeah, they won't talk to people. They'll talk to dogs, though. If you've got a dog, you will find friends. If you haven't got a dog, people don't talk to people. And this was a bizarre thing. And I know we've got off a bit on a tangent there, but that is a large characteristic, and it goes back on the previous questions. Is that is a massive characteristic of somebody who is successful in this industry. Social media. What do you think social media is about? Social media is about people getting to know who you are, what you stand for, and what you do. And what are the ethics that you abide by, and what is the purpose that you have in this life, and what is the reason you do what you do. And I would imagine the vast majority of people who've ever signed up to the Coaching Academy or have signed up on anything with me is because they understand what I'm about. And that is because I tell people what I'm about. I'm not shy about it. I'm not, and for the most part, I try to remember people's names, and I try to, communicate with people and blah, blah, blah. And in smaller networks, that is so much more important. I'm privileged enough that I've got a lot of people that follow me, and I'd love to be able to bump into them in the street and know who they were. But it's very tricky. Whereas in a gym, in a little commercial gym that has a few thousand members, I could easily name 1,000 members in there by first name. And that is a large part of getting busy, but also being a good communicator and a good coach. Is that these people will relate to you, know what you're about and why you do what you do. And as I say, a bit of a tangent, but something I'm very passionate about. I want trainers and coaches, good coaches, to get busy, but I also want clients and the people in the gyms desperate for help to be able to find help.
Yeah.
A lot of the time they don't find help because they're shy. They don't want to go and talk to somebody because they don't know who they are. Name badges in gyms. I always remember one of the gyms I worked at, it was like a big thing for management. Management would push you to wear these name badges, and everybody was trying to rebel against it. Is that, I don't want to wear a name badge. I'm going to rebel and not wear it. I'm like, the reason for that is so people know your name. And when people know your name, it's much easier to talk to somebody. If I'm in a restaurant and somebody has a name badge on, I'll call them by name. If somebody's at a supermarket and they serve me, I'll call them by name. Because that's what it's there for. And then straight away, they feel an affinity with me as a human being. And as we're maybe going way off tangent here, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's all completely valid and interesting points anyhow.
It's massively important. We're in a people-based industry.
So communication and people skills would be your main factor for separating good trainers to great trainers, just to sum it up.
Yes, that's
one of.
Yeah, that would be a base criteria. On top of that, you've got to be well versed. You've got to be willing to practice. You've got to be willing to learn from people. You've got to be willing to upskill a lot of the time. So many coaches out there, they get qualified and they don't do a course for 10 years.
Yeah.
The industry evolves all the time. You must be upskilling all the time. We change the modules in the academy, about every 6 months because stuff changes. We evolve them and change them and adapt them, and we make little tweaks to them, little things that some people might not even notice, but we go in and we reword them, or we try and communicate the things that we're communicating right now better than we did before. And it's even social media. There's stuff on social media. I'll go back at posts that I made 5 years ago, and I'll rewrite them because they were relevant then, they're relevant now, but the vocabulary needs to be slightly different.
Okay. It's also interesting as well, just on the differences with your social media. And one thing that I had noticed was previously, going back sort of 5 or 6 years now, you had posted a lot of training videos of yourself or things like that, whereas now it's more geared towards sort of the quotes that come up with the information and the infographics that you give. So, and that's another thing that I've noticed, like I said, that I've noticed with yours is it's your content is vastly changed over the years, but it's now moving a lot towards, um, you know, you give a lot more information now than you ever have.
Yeah, it was a tricky platform. I started with Facebook, and Facebook was my major platform. And Facebook, the joy of Facebook was it was very, you could put these whopping great articles and essays on there, and back in the day, people seemed to read them. And what's happened is that over time we've moved into more of a soundbite society, or maybe this was just my illusion of it. I like to think that people would read these extensive articles that I wrote on different subjects. And I've got catalogs and catalogs and catalogs of them. When in fact, a lot of people didn't want to do that. They want sound bites. People want sound bites of information. And I moved and migrated a lot of my the content that I put out there onto Instagram for one solid reason, really, was that Instagram forced me to communicate faster and in a more efficient way. And when I started with Instagram, I didn't really get it. And it was more, and this is the evolution of anybody in any kind of, facet or skill or business realm or whatever it might be. And early on, I think it was a popularity thing. It was like, the more people I get to follow me on Instagram, the better things are going to get. And then it was just bizarre because it wasn't, I put up exercise videos and it was just a bunch of people patting me on the back and saying, "Oh, well done, great, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, hold on. That's not what I'm really wanting, and it got me followers and it got me likes and it got me people who were listening. And that was the key. The key was I wanted people to listen to me in whatever way, shape or form. Go back 15 years, probably way before you even knew I existed. I used to go on all the forums in the UK, all the bodybuilding forums and things like this. And I just used to write stuff. I used to write articles and I just used to go in there and be like, "Who's asking questions? Can I help you?" And I'd go in there as a complete stranger to start with. I'd slowly introduce myself and blah, blah, blah. And I actually got a very good job off the back of one of these, one of the big supplement companies that got me in as a consultant because of it. And that was off the back of writing in one of these forums. And I got some magazine articles off the back of them and blah, blah, blah. And it was just simply, I was willing to help and put information out there. So it evolved because it wasn't, it forced me, Instagram forced me to tighten up my vocabulary, make things a lot shorter. And again, going back on things that we've learned to do over the years is that another thing, I remember I was doing some business, it was like a business mentorship. It was a mastermind kind of thing that I was doing with somebody else. And what they made us do is they gave us this whopping great letter that was like paragraphs long. And they said, right, you've got to put that into X amount of characters. And it was literally, I had to pull these 5 or 10 paragraphs that somebody would write in an email and condense them into literally 1 or 2 lines. And you had to get the same point across. And this was a bit like the skill that I talked about before in the coaching skill, where you put someone on the gym floor and you get them to coach a movement without speaking. Then you get them to coach a movement without moving. And they're 2 very different skills, but they tie and cross over so nicely. And this was a skill where it was all about being time efficient. And as a businessman, and as somebody who responds to and gets hundreds of emails a day, it's something you have to be very efficient but very eloquent at. And it was that skill of communication again. It was being able to get something across in a very brief way. So Instagram facilitated that, and because of Instagram, in many respects, I think I've mastered my tone better. I've mastered my communication a little bit better. I've got a better idea of what people actually want rather than what I think they want. And therefore, you've been privy to it, and I'm sure other people have that have followed me for a long time, is that there has been an evolution and there has been a change in the way that I deliver things. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the fact that I've continued to change and evolve and alter my opinions and alter my views and alter the way I deliver things. And that is important to me as a coach, because if I wasn't doing that, I'd just be some other dude with an opinion and a way of doing things that is, I might have 100,000 followers on something, but every single person in that following would be polarized into thinking the way that I thought. And that isn't my intention. My intention is to, try and help people to think for themselves, but try and give them credible information that they can back all that up with.
Yeah.
And this is what the Academy is about, is that, I'm trying to get across stuff. And even today, I put a post up today, and not everybody's it's not going to come across the same to everybody as it does to maybe you or the other people reading it or the people that understand your vocabulary. And somebody kind of completely construed it. They didn't get. They sort of said, "Are you insinuating this?" I said, "Well, I'm not insinuating anything. I'm just, putting down a statement and a fact." And I kind of want to support that with all this supporting evidence and kind of expand on it and go in all these different tangents and sort of say, this is the reason, this is this. And, I wanted to talk about protein synthesis. I wanted to talk about protein turnover. I wanted to talk about this, that, that. But ultimately, there wasn't space and there wasn't, to do that. All of a sudden, it becomes this really complex thing instead of it being this soundbite that was very punchy and very to the point and kind of got across why, but it also made people ask questions, which was kind of what I wanted to do. Because by default, instead of me having to get someone to read this whopping great piece of text, what it would enable me to do was to give that whopping great piece of text within the questions and answers to the thread. So if somebody was genuinely interested, they could read through the thread and go, right, I've had those questions answered. So you rely a lot of the time on social media for people to ask questions. And not only does that help interaction, does it help, but it also allows you to get across the points and get across the issues that people have. And, I talk to coaches about where are the best place to learn about your weight loss population. Join a Weight Watchers forum. They will give you your content for the next 2 years. Because all of the questions they're asking, as silly as some of them may sound, are pertinent questions. They're relevant, and somebody will preface a question with, I know it sounds stupid. No, it doesn't. It sounds like the sort of thing that nobody else really wants to ask. And I always say this in seminars, and I always, one of the first lines I say in seminars, look, if somebody's got a question, ask it. Because the chances are there's probably another 20 people in the room wanting to ask the same question, but they don't because they think they're going to feel or appear stupid. So is there such a thing as a stupid question? I guess, yeah, there is. But it's not the sort of thing that you mock someone or ridicule somebody over. You just kind of go, well, the reason that it might be a stupid question is because you haven't really thought it through. Is you haven't thought what you're asking. And, as I say, you wouldn't mock them or ridicule them. You just kind of get that point across as to maybe you should have asked this. And this is often the thing where, coaches ask these questions and they're not silly questions. They just haven't really thought them through. And what ends up happening is the coach actually answers the question for themselves, and again, that's that coaching skill where, I've kind of cultivated this ability and I get better and better at it, is that I can get someone to answer the questions they've got about the industry themselves and go, well, does this happen? And what happens when you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And there you go. There's your answer. And they figure it out for themselves, which is kind of what I want coaches to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a guru who people just follow and, like a bunch of lemmings. I want people to think for themselves.
Yeah.
And when I have an opinion about something, I'll tell people it's my opinion. I go, look, in my view, or in my experience, I just did it briefly before with you. I said, look, in my experience might be completely different to somebody else's.
Yeah.
But in my experience and, 20 years as a coach, I've done over nearly, 50,000 personal training sessions, I've got a bit of experience and, but it will be segmented demographics because during that time, I only worked in about 4 different facilities. Yeah. So I know that my demographics are isolated to 4 different regions, which means I might have experienced something very, very different to somebody in a different region.
Okay. We're going to give you one more question today. Now, this one was asked, and I purposely left this one for the end because I have a feeling that there are thousands of trainers that are going to be in this situation, and I feel like you're going to have probably one of the best answers for it. So, we were asked, word for word, I'm currently working at a commercial gym. I'm doing 40 to 50 sessions per week. I want to expand my business. What would be the first couple options I would look at doing?
Okay. Now, this could be controversial. And this is also based on the facility as well.
Yeah.
Now, the first thing, let me take you through the process of the first thing that I would do with any coach is what I want to do with a coach is I want to maximize the service delivery because the service that you offer dictates the price that you can charge. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So the better the service, the more you can charge for it. Yeah, it's true of any service-based industry. Now, in order to maximize that service, a lot of the stuff we've been talking about throughout this podcast is about the people that we serve. And it's understanding the people that we serve, the things that they need that we can provide for them. The provision of, when we talked about caloric curation. So the first thing I'd look at with any coach is, are you providing a service that is relevant to your audience or the people that you're serving? And how do you make that better? Now, if we can make that better and make that service delivery more efficient and better, all of a sudden now we've got something that is worth more than it was before. So what we've done is we've maximized the price that somebody can charge, which is part of the scaling process. We've then got to look at the number of sessions that somebody's doing. Now, if you're doing 40 one-on-one sessions, now, what you've got to remember about PT, and for the listeners that are tuning in that aren't PTs, what you've got to understand is that when somebody does a 9-5 job and does the 30-hour week or a 40-hour week, the vast majority of the time they're not working, right? They're not doing 40 hours. They're probably, you could probably divide in today's day and age, somebody who sits at a computer all day, you can imagine there's probably 3 or 4 hours a day where they're probably just surfing nonsense and not doing anything, or going on toilet breaks, or having snacks, or making cups of tea, or whatever it might be. Now, a trainer doing 40 hours is with the client for 40 hours, face to face. There is no playing around on your phone. There's no making cups of tea. There's no nothing. The second that I walk through that door and I'm dealing with a client, and they've got my full undivided attention for that full hour. That is a lot to ask. 40 hours of that a week is going to drain the shit out of anybody. And if not, what it's going to do, it's going to mean that your service delivery, by the time you probably get to the latter end of those 40 sessions, is going to be horrendous. You will be yawning, you will be tired, you will be mentally fatigued, you'll be physically fatigued. So my question there would be, are you delivering the highest level of service you can over those 40 hours? If you're not, what we need to do is maximize your price and minimize the sessions to the point that you can still deliver an incredible, impeccable service, which means for most coaches, again, based off my experience, around about 25 to 30 sessions a week. Most coaches can't deal with much more than that, because if you're providing a service, your session price has to cover your preparation price as well. So if you're dealing with a client and they're doing 3 sessions a week, that means you need to probably spend 30 or 40 minutes preparing their lifestyle adaptations, their nutrition, their habits, their behaviors, all the stuff that you're trying to align and help with their relations with their family, their friends, their social lives, blah, blah, blah. You're going to spend about 40 minutes to 60 minutes a week on that client, which means they're paying for 3 hours, but they're actually getting 4. And now we apply that to every single one of those clients. Now, if you've got clients doing 1 session a week, that's a lot of hours. Whereas if you've got 10 clients doing 3 sessions a week, that's 30 hours a week, plus another percentage. So we're now up to 40 hours a week. So now you're doing 40 hours a week, 10 hours at home preparing stuff for your clients and delivering this incredible service that you're charging for, and 30 hours of face-to-face on the gym floor. Now, once you're at that point, you're done. So the question was, how do you scale it? You can't. At that point, you are selling your time for money. And when that time runs out, the only choice you've got is to minimize the service delivery, i.e. make it more efficient and make it streamlined and blah, 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 which means either you need to go into small group coaching, you need to go into big group coaching, partner training, you need to increase your service, do all those things. And again, once we get into that sort of facility, we're now changing your business. You're no longer a one-on-one coach. You're a group coach. You're a whatever it might be. The next option is then obviously things like online coaching. Now, online coaching is great. And, the internet will tell you that online coaching is a massively scalable model and there's thousands of people who want online coaching and blah, blah, blah. You are venturing into an environment that is massively competitive. And the vast majority of your clients will go with a fitness celebrity way over you, because the fitness celebrity will be delivering a very efficient, streamlined, non-service-based program online for a very cheap price. So you've then now got to communicate with people outside of your geographical area, but what we were talking about before. You've got to get across to them. You've got to introduce yourself. You've got to get them to know you, and you've got to get them to sign up at a ticket price that's going to be considerably higher than that fitness celebrity over there that's doing it at £15 a month. So isn't the dream, the online coaching world, isn't the dream that people make it out to be? It's difficult, it's workable, it's massively scalable. So if you get it right, you can make a lot of money and you can service a lot of people and you can get some great results and you can make a difference. And then outside of that, we've got things like you could open your own gym, you could create some online products like an ebook or a training program online. But again, it comes down to the quality of it. Is that every man and his dog is going to be cranking out these. So how do you define yourself and how do you make a differential? And for years and years and years, Richard, in the fitness industry, people have tried to be different, almost like in a novelty perspective. People have been functional trainers. People have been, hypertrophy trainers. People have been, advanced trainers. People have been, and they've given themselves these terms just to try and differentiate. And fundamentally, everybody goes back to the basics anyways. So everybody, you don't have dysfunctional coaches. Nobody trains dysfunction. So everybody's a functional coach. But everybody's tried to define themselves and create something a little bit different, to the point that, I was having a discussion with my wife yesterday, and we were talking about how you make yourself stand out in an environment. And something like, if you were to shave your hair off, if I was to get you to shave your hair off now, Richard, and dye your hair, whatever remains a bit pink, you walk into a room with 1,000 people, they're going to remember you. Maybe not for the right reasons, but they'll remember you. Now, if you can then get across something, you're going to be remembered, whatever it might be. I did a business consult with a coach not so long ago, and he had massive long hair, and I said, "Is that on purpose?" And he said, "What do you mean? Is it on purpose?" I goes, "Did you grow your hair intentionally to stand out more on social media?" He said, "No, not really, but he does because of his hair." So people draw it out. It's the dude with the hair. So we're constantly trying to stand out, and often in really a novelty way rather than a quality way. So we've got to think about ways in which we can produce high quality, because remember, the quality in the fitness industry is very low. If you produce an online program that is incredible, that you've worked hard at developing, and you get some incredible results, and reputation will precede it, and you'll get busy, but it's going to take time. Somebody with 1,000 followers on social media, you're not going to be able to drop into online coaching and pick up 100 clients. You're just not. And we've ran a couple of experiments. We have an online model that works kind of in the background and ticks away. But we threw out an online advert to nearly 100,000 people, and we had less than 1% sign up. And that's based off reputation. Okay. So, and the vast majority of them probably wouldn't have seen it and blah, 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 but it's not what people make it out to be. You've got to pay to play. You've got to get that out in front of people. And remember, we talked about geography before, is that in a closed environment of a club, I've got the geography that I serve right in front of me, which means I can introduce myself, I can tell them who I am, I can get them to know more about me. They can actually watch me doing what I do as a skill. Now, you go online, nobody has a clue who you are, what you do, what you stand for, what your morals, what your ethics are, what they get for their money. They have no idea. And this is why the vast majority of people who get online coaching and get busy get it off referrals. They get it off friends and other people. So where do you go with it? You maximize your current service model. You maximize your price that you can charge in the geographical area that you can. Some things can come into play, like location, but obviously location is relevant to quality of life. So I always talk a lot about quality of life for your clients, quality of life for your coaches. Now, back in the day, people were like, well, I need to move to London because I'll earn more money as a PT. Not only will you earn more money, but your rent will be higher and your outgoings will be higher and every drink you buy will be higher and food will be higher. So therefore, your quality of life remains stagnant, remains the same as it did. So it isn't this whole, I've got to move to a better facility a lot of the time. Sometimes geographical relocation for coaches is good, but you've got to think about whys and hows and how much you're going to be able to charge. And also private facilities. Coaches have this thing about, I've got to go to a private facility. Now, in a private facility, nobody walks through the door. So you've now got to find all those clients. You go into a commercial facility with 3,000 members, they're all already there. Really easy to pick up clients, really easy to get busy, really easy to ply your trade and get good at what you're doing. So there are multiple scaling models. Two of the guys that have been on my mastermind, they've opened gyms. They've always dreamt of owning a gym, and we went through the logistics, we went through the financials, and again, there won't be a 6-month period in the UK where you don't see a gym open and close. Somebody gets a pipe dream of, I want to own a gym, and then really reality kicks in about it. I put a post up not that long ago about the square footage of a leg press, and not only how much the leg press will cost you, but how much it will cost you to rent the space that leg press will sit on for the next 2 years.
Oh yeah.
And these are things that people have got to think about. And this is what we try and help people with the academy and blah blah blah. Is that if you're trying to make it in the fitness industry, you've got to do the maths on things. You've got to understand the logistics of what you're doing. Is that when people talk about a 6-figure trainer, they're not one-on-one coaching. They're not. And there will be a handful of coaches. I earned 6 figures as a trainer where I worked, but I was in probably one of the wealthiest areas of London. And had a staple of clients who were very wealthy, successful people. And I was established for 15 years at that point. And I made 6 figures, but I didn't take home 6 figures. I made 6 figures, but it was I was charging ridiculous amounts for personal training. But I believed I was worth every single penny, and to this day still do. And it's a funny one because, again, it's this thing where somebody goes into the industry and they don't kind of figure it out. If you're charging $100 an hour and you can work 40 hours a week, that's you done. You pay all your tax, pay all your rent, pay all your this, that, the other. The rest of it is what you get your quality of life from, in many respects, and can facilitate other things in your life. And again, I don't want to hinge on that whole, money makes the world go around, but in many respects it does. And if I want to provide a quality of life for my family, money plays a big role. And most stress that most people deal with will be based around money. And that's a big factor for any coach out there, is that you've got to think about the future. You've got to think about what you're going to do post training, or what you're going to do when you get full. Because for years and years and years, they struggle to get their diaries full. They get the diaries full and then go, oh, right, what do I do now? So yeah, it's what do you do? You've got multiples of avenues. Some of them you might not enjoy. Some of them might not be right for you, but they involve handling and dealing with more people. Some people, it might be the speaking circuits. I made a very good living out of doing seminars many years ago, but that takes a skill, and it takes an audience. You've got to have an audience. Not that long ago, I could fill a seminar room with 200 tickets in less than a couple of months. Now there's hundreds of people speaking. It's not quite that easy. So yeah, I know it's not really probably the answer that people wanted. People always want that magic bullet, but yeah, there's a lot to it. But it is a scalable model, and you can make money as a PT, very much so.
Well, I mean, I feel like, you can say it's not the answer that you wanted, but at the same time, it's a very realistic answer that you'll get. That's not coming from, specific business coaches that say, straight off the bat, do this and you'll make this amount of money. And you'll find a lot of the time that the quality of the training actually significantly decreases. So it's a good realistic, a realistic visual of it.
Yeah, and a lot of these things are short term, right?
Yeah.
I have a multitude of things that I could do tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I could release some very low quality products, very low quality service based items. I could launch them tomorrow. It would probably take me less than 24 hours to pull them together.
Yeah.
I could create an ebook tomorrow, and I could probably release it, and I'd probably make 20 or 30 grand out of it in the next 2 months. But off the back of that, my reputation, the likelihood that person is going to come back and buy another one is very unlikely.
Yeah.
And that is important to me. And also, is it of the standard that I would want it to be? Probably not.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to do that in this industry, is that, everybody wants a fast buck, but some people, in doing so, they forget about the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that it is a very small world, and people also forget about that. Coaches forget about that, is that, you get something wrong, you don't get to do it again.
Reputation starts to become everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think we've kept you for more than we should have. I feel like we could do it. We could do another 2 or 3 of these. They've got so many more questions for you.
Easily.
So just a quick shout out again with the Advanced Coaching Academy. Where can everybody find you on social media?
You'll find me on Instagram under the PT Coach, at the PT Coach. Advanced Coaching Academy, we also have an Instagram. It's not as active as mine is, but we do put stuff on there. Also, advancedcoachingacademy.com is the website that you'll find us under. We actually have a new business launching very soon, which is going to be based around coaching assets, which is giving coaches the material for scaling the business. Currently, we do subscriptions to recipe books. We produce recipe books for coaches that they can then hand over to the clients and give to the clients for free, or even retail them if they want.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of that sort of stuff. But we're going to be producing legal forms, training plans, the sort of things that coaches can utilize. So we're not selling them direct to consumer. Where these are for coaches, we'll customize them, put them with their branding, etc., etc. So that's hopefully going to be launched in the next couple of months, and that's kind of a tag on and a subdivision almost to the ACA.
Okay.
That's going to be called ACA Coaching Assets, which is giving coaches the material and helping them trying to scale their business, not do things that they probably shouldn't be doing. So many coaches, when they try to scale a business, they end up being marketers, graphic designers. They end up being, and in doing so, produce some terrible material. So we're going to try and help them with producing that material by, we've got a graphic design team that put this material together for them. We make it look nice. We brand it all up. We put their logos, their websites and things like that on there, and just make it look really pretty. And it's stuff that will help their clients.
Okay, cool.
We do commercial eating guides, guides to McDonald's, guides to Burger King, and Nando's and various other places. So it's advancedcoachingacademy.com.
Okay, cool. And again, we thank you so much for coming on. We know you're a very busy man, so I really appreciate you coming back on. Hopefully down the track we can get you to come back on again, and with any luck, if we can get the stars to align, we hope that we can have you out in WA for the very first time.
Yes, we're hoping that may occur next year. All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
No problems. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye now.